first trading day in the new week. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Hope we had a very great welcome to everyone. Hope we had a very nice weekend. Let's get the show started with me, Boston Amofai. This is your Business Morning. It's going to be a very interesting business week as we tiptoe into the new month of August. But let's start with a very big story that we started following in the middle of last week. That relates to Nigeria's very messy financial statements. The Auditor General's report, which we broached last week, the report shows that the government overpaid its 405 MDAs, that's ministries, departments, and agencies, to the tune of 195.9 billion naira. That's what the report is showing this morning. According to reports, the book shows that the overpayments were made under the Integrated Personnel and Payroll Information System, or what you call the IPPIS, which Nigeria inaugurated in 2007. The Integrated Personnel and Payroll Information System allows the government to run a single system in which all the payments, salaries, and all of that are seen on a single electronic format. However, about 195 billion still went through the system. Meantime, that report submitted. The auditor report says the review of the funds released shows anomalies in respect of salaries paid under the IPPIS. The report, which was laid before the National Assembly in June, says the integrated payment system overpayments by Funds Department of the Office of the Auditor General and extra budgetary expenditure reveals weakness in budgeting and in accounting for expenditure. And that's one story that we are following for you, a very messy federal government financials showing anomalies and misstatements and weaknesses in budgeting and accounting for expenditure. And that's one story already on the street. Meantime, from a messy federal government financials to the messy Apapa, the Lagos state and the authorities are now putting heads together to clear the mess that were created years ago. So over the weekend, the Lagos government moved in and shut down 5 bonded terminals, or what you call warehouses, situated in densely populated Ajigunle area of Apapa, the notorious #1 seaport in Nigeria, and the roads adjoining it. 5 other premises were also shut down at the weekend, including the long-established and popular God Day Cinema. They all, according to government authorities in Lagos, that's the agency responsible for building permit, all bonded terminals operating within residential areas will be sealed. The genesis of Apapa's gridlock is indiscriminate siting of tank farms and bonded terminals without approval from the government. That was quoting Lekan Shodainde, the general manager in charge of Lagos State Building Control Agency. Now the agency has moved to Apapa, looking at the root cause of the vehicular mess that had been created in and around Apapa, Nigeria's premier seaport over the last years, and now hurting the economy of both at the federal and at state level, and in some cases causing fatalities. So the Lagos state is moving in to clear some of those tank farms and bonded terminals or warehouses that were licensed by the government years ago to provide private sector business to Nigeria's maritime industry. That's the story, and we're following that closely, carrying the mess that Apapa had become over the last years. Let's welcome everyone formally to the month of August. Now we have a good news for you for Thursday. This is going to be the first listing of the Nigerian Stock Exchange this month. By way of introduction, expected on Thursday, the 2nd of August, Nigeria leading petrochemical and fertilizer company, Notori PLC, which is a private company, will list its shares on the stock exchange by way of introduction. What that means is that the company will be bringing some of its existing shares onto the stock exchange. There is no offer for sale, offer for subscription, but this company will join the oil and gas segment of the Nigerian stock market, and we expect this to add some fillip to the lackluster we've seen on the market, on the Nigerian stock market, since the end of the first quarter of the year. This is the first petrochemical company and fertilizer company. That's what Notori PLC adores, petrochemical and fertilizer. This company, which is already a PLC, also has the funding support of the African Development Bank. The last of that, about a month or so ago, was $100 million to help this company make more business, as petrochemical and fertilizer business is one of the in thing in Nigeria's business sector. Meantime, we're looking at the deep end of second quarter and first half of 2018 earnings, especially by the listed banks. Some of these numbers, let's warn you in advance, will be sweet, some will be very bitter. Be on the outlook towards the end of this week when we start reporting on some of these numbers as soon as we get them. There will also be an outlook on the second half of the year. Some of the banks will have, of course, will be getting ready, or already are reporting under the new International Financial Reporting Standards, or what we call the IFRS, which deadline is January 2019. All of that will be in focus as we step into the new month on Wednesday, the 1st. On the broader scale of the economy, where is budget 2018 fiscal spendings? No one has an idea. There is no word yet, but the National Assembly is yet to heed the plea of the executive branch late last week to return to the chambers and pass critical financing requests. President Buhari's administration has before the National Assembly a supplementary budget. About 185 billion of that, or 200 billion, will go into the preparations for the 2019 elections, which is just about 6 months away, looking at the calendar, including the various capital expenditure, very critical, that the administration is pursuing in the area of infrastructure, as well as fundings for MDAs, for new employment and other things, where we'll get to hear from the National Assembly what will happen. Meantime, the country's political speedometer is expected to rise much higher this new month, with a clear 6 months to 2019 elections, with the incumbent party facing its first transition program. Now you have seen the defections and the deflections taking place, and you expect more on the political scene. Will that raise Nigeria's political, or what you call the sovereign risk for the market? That's part of the conversation we're starting here today on the program at about 10:30. Keep with us and we'll be with you on that. We'll check through with the Naira and the Eurobond market to see what message we are getting from the market before the elections proper. Meantime, on tap for the new month is our July CPI and inflation report. That will be coming through from the Bureau of Statistics. We are looking at the debt office for the Naira bond and the savings bonds auctions, as well as the meeting for July FAC meeting. All of that is on our economic plate for the new month, starting Wednesday. Keep a date with us. Now, mark some of this down. Let's get to the stock market. A bit of a gentle 0.1% gain on the Nigerian Stock Exchange Broad Index on Friday. That's overall for the week. The market is still very weak at the knees, as it were. A little bit lackluster. We're sitting around the figure which we'll be running around through the month of July. July finishes off tomorrow. The market will finish the month in a negative territory, bearing any unforeseen rally that has to be stronger than a whirlwind if we can offset 4.3% negative reading since the 1st of July, and year-to-date a negative 4.20%. But the numbers look a little bit tepid on Friday, but still a step in the green territory, 36,636.97. And the total value of all listed equities on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, 13.272 trillion local currency. If you look at the volume, not a very surprising week, 1.417 billion ordinary shares for 16.7 billion naira in less than 20,000 transactions. That was the week we saw a few of the earnings. So if you look at the sectoral performances, the big five, as we call it here, these are the big five. You can see the banking sector, 1.97%. We don't have any of the big banks' earnings yet on the street, but markets are positive that the Tier 1 will report better than expected. You've heard earlier last month a few story, early this month, about the Tier 2 banks. So positive optimism some optimism around the banks. Big banks fetch you that about 2% on the index. Insurance, which is their cousin, follow that thread in the positive territory, much better than their cousins, the banks, by 2.16%. Some analysts say they're remaining very conservative in the near to medium term on the equities market. Look at the consumer goods, about 0.2% in the week that Dangote Sugar was punished for its lackluster earnings. And that was the story, part of the story. You can see there, we're looking for more earnings from the consumer space this week. Then you have the industrial goods. Of course, investors were also upset with Lafarge Africa negative number for the second quarter of the year, although the company is forecasting a better outlook, looking to do another rights issue after about 30 billion late last year, which was largely subscribed by his parent company, Lafarge Holcim. We're looking at what will be the news story from Lafarge, concentrating on the mid-level segment of Nigeria's cement place, trying to tap into the infrastructure spending of the government at the federal and state level. Dangote Cement was also in that space, a bit of a weakening there for those two major movers in that space. CCN, and that's the cement company of Northern Nigeria, had a bit of a positive week, but that was not enough to upset the two big names in the industrial goods, Dangote and Lafarge Africa. Move on to the oil and gas, and that's where we're looking at a big story this week. Forte Oil, which is one of the most capitalized stock there, finished 3.9% on Friday, less than 600,000 units. The stock price climbed back to a new level of 24. Owando was in the news most of last week because of his latest earnings, and his annual shareholders meeting concluded, and of course the promises and pledge that this company is making a turnaround. Owando's shares climbed 8.25% Friday. That's massive, 6.34 million shares at 5.25 naira, where that stock is expected to open this Monday for the new trading day and the week. Owando made most of his earnings for the first half of the year from oil prices, which was very steady because of geopolitical issues. Then you have Seplat, which is the E&P company, a negative 3.85%, a bit of a profit booking. We're looking at Seplat numbers. We haven't seen that. Is this a signal of what to expect from Seplat in its second quarter and first half of the year numbers? We're trying to find out from the marketplace at 625 a reading. We've seen Seplat at 700 per share since the year started as a high. Then you find Total, which is the oil retailer, one of the giants, down by 0.1%, just shy of 200 naira per share. Then, of course, finally, you find Japol up by 7.69% at 28 kobo per share. If you go to the fixed income market, and that's part of the conversation you're looking for. Last week, we had more than 700 billion naira liquidity in the market due to FAC disbursement and repayment of matured treasuries by the central bank. All of that pushed into liquidity in the market, pushed interbank lower of 7.25% on Friday. And that part of that also went into the Naira bond market when the central bank conducted a very massive mop-up in the current week to try and trim or mop up a little bit of those matured treasuries and inflows of liquidity into the banking system. That is the Naira bond for you, 21.58, a very decent, 75 transactions. Those are the four most actively traded. And you can see March 2027, a midterm, and February 23rd, 2028, another midterm paper, taking most of the transactions there, 22 deals and 17. Look at the treasury space, and you see much a bigger story as always, 133.88 billion. We're looking at the central bank this week conducting another auction. Of course, you expect that Wednesday, a primary market auction, 8.93 billion. Sorry, let me get that very correct. I need to be sure of that figure. For treasury bills, what is happening this week is 215.63 billion naira. That's what the central bank will be offering on Wednesday. Yes, 215.63 billion, 9.5 billion, 91 days, 69.57 billion naira worth of bills for 182 day and 136.42 billion naira for 364 day. All of that will be rolled out on Wednesday, and that's another aggressive week to start your business week. Stick around, we'll be right back. We have more story from the debt market.